Story 1. I taught for selling my house to get rid of my stepchildren. My wife passed away in November of 2022. She left me 3 adult stepchildren who have all been very clear that I am not their parent despite being in their lives for over 10 years. Their father has retired to the Philippines. They are 21, 22, 25. Their mother and I have been helping them out with a place to live because our city is very Hakal. The youngest is in school still, but the other 2 are employed. After their mother passed away, they stopped doing anything around the house. We had been charging no rent so they could save money. The older 2 were responsible for their own bills. Other than that, I paid power, water, internet, all the utilities. We even provided food for the youngest. Now they do nothing to help around the house. I have had to hire a cleaning lady to help. It's stupid. So I put the house up for sale. The price has gone up so much since I bought it that I could retire to the Philippines if that was my thing. It took no time at all to sell and I'm moving out to my cabin. I gave each kid $10,000 and told them that the house was sold. They aren't idiots. They had seen the for sale sign and been around for the open houses. Now they are getting upset with me for throwing them out of their home. I guess they did some of their growing up there, but they never treated it like much more than a place to sleep. I think that their mom would be disgusted with how they treated me and our home. They pooled their money and got an apartment, but if they count on only the money I gave them, they will have nothing in a year. Story 2. My mother only bought a gift for my son, excluding my daughter. I taught for leaving before she can give it. I'm using a throwaway account. My M33 mother has a history of treating my son J, M7 better than my daughter L, F5. The pattern until today has been slightly larger gifts as well as a bit more attention and affection, noticeable but not egregious yet. My son's birthday was last Thursday and my daughter's birthday is Monday, only for days apart. We live out of state and this weekend would be the only time she got to see them, as it was my brother had his wedding Saturday out of state and everyone would be together. Important background. 3 weeks ago my mother stayed overnight at our place and bought both of them a $60 blow-up pool for their birthday. About a week ago she called me and asked if my son would like a specific gift, a kid's plastic axe throwing set from Costco. I said he would. When we got to the reception, my mother pulled my son aside and told him that she had a birthday gift for him and she will give it to him on Sunday before we left. My wife and I looked at each other knowing that likely she didn't have a gift for my daughter, and we are finally going to have to address this situation with my kids and mother. But I let it go. My kids and I were in the wedding and frankly were busy between the rehearsal and the reception. As we were leaving the reception, we all said goodbye to her, and she asked what time we are leaving. I said 9:00 a.m. as we have to go pick up our dog from boarding and my daughter's birthday was tomorrow, so we have lots to do this afternoon. She then asked me if it would be okay to give Jay his birthday present before we left. I asked, "Did you get Ella a present?" She responded first, "Well, no, her birthday isn't until Monday." I responded, "Well, no then. That wouldn't be fair to give one child a birthday gift and not the other. At this point she blamed me and said, "Well, you didn't give me any ideas for her." Then, "Well, I can go and see what they have here at the hotel, a casino hotel in St. Louis, so not exactly anything a 5-year-old would want." Again, I told her no, that wouldn't be appropriate. I'm irate at this point, but calmly addressed her. My mom asked if I knew the area and she can run to Target and find something for her between 8 and 9 a.m. Again, I said no and we are going to have to leave. Finally, she said, "Well, I could pick something out for her on my phone and have it shipped to her house." Again, I said no, my son would have a huge gift and my 5-year-old would have a shipping notification of a last-minute, no-thought gift from Amazon. My daughter has previously asked, "Why does Grandma love Jay better?" and I'm tired of making excuses for my mother. So instead of a 9:00 a.m. departure, we are leaving at 7:30. Once we are on the road, I will text her to return her gift for my son, and that we need some space. I'm tired of making excuses to my daughter. Story 3. I taught for telling my ex-husband's new girlfriend I have no idea. For context, my ex and I were married for 13 years and have 2 children together. He is my best friend, and we separated amicably under the understanding that we both wanted different things. We co-parent very well, and I am now comfortable with addressing the failings we both did during our marriage. Now on to yesterday. It was our eldest birthday, so we all went out for a meal. My ex and his new girlfriend have been dating for months. He let me know the minute they were official because that was our deal when it came to the kids. He asked me if it would be okay to bring her to the birthday thing and introduce her to the kids. I would have liked to met her beforehand, but that felt a little intrusive. so I said okay. Our kids are teenagers, married for 13 years but together longer. You can do the math. Our eldest was in my bridal party. She's nice, friendly and fine, but I got the distinct impression from her that she wanted us to get along. Yes, me too. If she's gonna be in my kids' lives, I want to know she's a good person. Then my eldest came up to me and gave me a card. My birthday was months ago, and to short a long story, it usually passes without notice. My ex is a good man, but birthdays and anniversaries are not something he does. I knew that since the day I met him. In all the years we were together, not one card or present, etc. It was down to me to sort out the kids' birthdays and Christmas and so on. No big deal for me. But his girlfriend said he had ignored her birthday a few weeks ago. She asked me when he starts caring about that stuff, and I laughed and said, I have no idea. But 13 years of marriage and 2 kids wasn't the benchmark. I wandered away to talk to other people and thought nothing of it. Now she has somehow gotten hold of my number and is asking me if it gets better. I've just ignored the texts because I feel like giving him a heads up that his new girlfriend expects these things is the right thing to do, but at the same time I've got a little bit of spiteful resentment about teaching him how to be better when he never tried with me. Aita, what should I do? Throw away for reasons.
Story 4.
Aida, for calling out my husband for not being a good Christian. I 27F have been married to my husband 34M for 5 years. My husband is a devout follower of his religion and has been since he was raised in it. I respect his beliefs, even though I don't share them and have no intention of converting. I was raised in the Christian faith. However, I left when I was an adult due to sexual abuse in my church, which nobody believed occurred because the one who did it was the pastor. Recently, my husband has been pressuring me to convert to his religion. He says that it would bring us closer together and create a more harmonious household. I understand where he's coming from, but I firmly believe that faith is a personal journey, and I shouldn't be forced into something I don't believe in. To add to the issue, my husband, despite his religious teachings, doesn't always practice what he preaches. He expects me to adhere to traditional gender roles, yet he often neglects his own responsibilities at home. He's quick to judge others for their actions, even though his faith teaches non-judgment and kindness. He makes comments about gay people that I have discussed with him as a major issue. This hypocrisy has been bothering me for a while. Last night, during another discussion about my potential conversion, I finally snapped. I told him that if he wants me to consider converting, he needs to set a better example by actually living according to his religion's values. I pointed out that he should start by fulfilling his own responsibilities, that he should make more money than me and actually lead in the decision-making. I'm a nurse and he's currently unemployed after he was let go from his job in an office. That he should be less judgmental of others because according to his faith, only God can judge them. I also said he should show more of the virtues Jesus asked of Christians, that he should clothe the naked, feed the hungry, visit the prisoner, aid the orphan and the widow, etc. I also made it clear that while I respect his beliefs, I have no intention of converting unless I genuinely believe in it, which I currently don't because of the hypocritical behavior of his faith. My husband was furious. He accused me of being disrespectful and undermining his faith. He said that I was attacking him personally and that I don't understand the pressure he's under to have a unified religious household. He left for church this morning at 7 for Bible study, and I have already gotten a phone call from the pastor saying I'm an ungodly woman who tricked a good man into marrying him and I should repent. I have also gotten a tirade of texts and emails from members of his church saying I was disrespectful and being a bad wife, and I'm starting to wonder if I was too harsh, that maybe I shouldn't have said anything at all. Aida?
Story 5.
Aida, for telling my BF he should move out of my house. I 28F bought my house 5 years ago. I got an inheritance from my great aunt who passed away and has no children. I was also saving for a home at the time and was able to buy a house with 20% down and pay off all my student loans, so I'm very grateful to her for that. I bought a very small house on a big lot which was pretty affordable back in the day as everyone wanted a big house and didn't care as much about the backyard space. My BF 31M and I moved in together a year ago and he pays rent to me, but it's much lower than he would pay if he rented elsewhere. He began complaining about how I ran my house like that I hang up my laundry outside on clotheslines and also because I tore out the grass in my front yard to make a wildflower garden and clover lawn. I don't know why he has opinions about what the lawn is made of, but he complains it looks ghetto. It's not even obstructing his hobbies, He doesn't even hang out outside. The big arguments came recently from me getting chickens. My city has a backyard chicken program where they grant permits for people to have backyard chickens. I got my permit after applying for 3 years straight and began looking to get chickens. I spent last summer building a coop. My BF knows how to use tools but refused to help, saying it will make the house look like a barnyard. So I did it myself, and now he is complaining. He moved in with me to live in a house, not a farm. He claims the chickens will be disgusting. But our neighbor got the permit last year and has chickens, but there is no weird smells or sounds coming from them. Last night I finally got the 4 heritage breed chickens I was looking for and told him, and he yelled at me for not listening to him. I was sick of this and told him to move out since he can't stand to live in a house with chickens in the backyard, and he got all quiet and proceeded to ignore me today. I'm starting to think he wants to move out but doesn't want to deal with the high rent elsewhere. He is always telling me because he pays rent he should get a say. Aida for telling him to move out because he won't let me do as I want on my own property. My house is finally looking like the house of my dreams, and I put work in every weekend to do it all myself. I feel like he is now intruding on my paradise, and being super critical of everything has me wanting him to leave.
Story 6.
Aida for telling my parents they wouldn't meet my kids anyway. My brother and I had very different childhoods. We were raised by the same parents, in the same home, but we have very different memories of our upbringing. So, whenever my brother's wife or someone in her family asks me something about our childhood, I defer to my brother. If they ask me anything that would require me to speak from memory about my childhood, adolescence, or early adulthood, I tell them, oh, I can't answer that. You'll need to ask brother's name. If I say anything that contradicts my brother's memories, it'll cause a huge fight, so I stay out of it by deferring to my brother. Usually, conversations don't center on our upbringing, so it doesn't come up. A few months ago, I was having dinner with my parents, my brother, his wife, and her sister. At one point, my mother asked my Sil's sister if she wanted to have kids. She said she did eventually. My mother praised the response and said she was glad to hear a normal response instead of having a daughter like me who doesn't want kids. That's been a huge sticking point for my mother since I was very young, so it's normal for her to complain about it. But this time, she went on, even pretending to cry over how sad it was that I didn't want kids. After a few minutes of this, I said without forethought, even if I had kids, you'd never meet them. So I don't know why you're so concerned about it anyway. I have my reasons for this. But my parents and brother deny any of it happened. My brother's wife is 7 months pregnant with their first child. Understandably, she was very concerned about why I wouldn't allow my parents to meet my hypothetical children. I didn't want to speak from memory about my upbringing because my memories differ from those of my brother and our parents. I would be dismissed as a liar when sharing my honest memories. So, I told my Sil to ask my brother. I thought my Sil would forget about it, but she actually asked later. Apparently, my brother told her, our mother never liked rarely for whatever reason, but our children will probably be fine. My Sil didn't find this very reassuring, so she kept pressing my brother. My brother told his wife about the incident where he fell into a public pool. I jumped in after him, and our mother screamed at me for pushing him into the pool, then gave me the silent treatment for days. He told her that our mother stole his socks and put them in my room, so our mother could accuse me of stealing the socks and scream at me for it. He told her about how I'd have to eat at a separate table so my mother could have one-on-one meals with my brother. He told her that I was always in trouble at home but never at school. My Sil asked me if all of this was true, and I was like, yes, but brother's name always said he didn't remember any of it. My Sil asked me where our father was in all of this, and I said he was either working or in front of the TV. Incidents like these happened almost every day. It turns out my brother remembers almost everything that I remember, but he didn't want our parents to know that he remembers. My Sil got it all out of him when they were back home. Since then, my Sil has been saying that she doesn't want their children to be alone with our parents. She said it's fine if our parents visit, as long as she's in the room. My brother is obviously blaming me for his wife's reasonable decision, and he said, our parents will be furious with me when they find out that they won't be able to be alone with their grandchildren. I was like, okay, but they've always been furious with me.
Story 7.
Aida for not giving up my first class ticket for a kid. A few weeks ago, my 21F boyfriend 27M surprised me with a first-class ticket for a long-haul flight. He's been doing well in his career and wanted to treat me, and I was really excited because I'd never flown first class before. We had two connecting 12 hours flights, and the airline we used has a very high-rated first class for those long flights. So, after we boarded the flight, and I settled into my seat, I was already feeling a bit overwhelmed by the luxury. I grew up lower middle class, and I had never, ever flown higher than the cheapest seats on a plane before. About 20 minutes before takeoff, a flight attendant approached me with a woman and a young kid maybe around 6 years old. The woman explained that she had booked a first-class ticket for herself and her son, but due to a booking error, he ended up in economy. She asked if I would be willing to switch seats with her son so he could experience first class as well. I felt really awkward. I understand that it was disappointing for the kid, but this was a gift from my boyfriend, and I was really looking forward to enjoying it. I politely declined and explained that it was my first time in first class and I wanted to experience it. The woman seemed pretty upset and tried to argue that her son would appreciate it more than me, and that it was unfair because I didn't even pay for the ticket myself. The flight attendant seemed to be on the woman's side, subtly implying that I should consider being more understanding. After about a minute, my boyfriend stood up and looked at the flight attendant. He told her he had bought the tickets, that he was a platinum member of the airline, and that he tends to book all of his company's business trip flights with the airline, and if she booted me to the economy, he would take his business elsewhere. Eventually, the woman went back to business class with her son, but throughout the flight, I could feel the flight attendant glaring at me every time she passed by. When I told my boyfriend about it, he said I did nothing wrong and that it was my ticket to use and that he stood up for me because I had the seat on my ticket and it was disrespectful for her to even ask for my seat in the first place. But some of my friends think I should have given up my seat to the kid, saying that it would have been the kind thing to do, especially since I didn't pay for the ticket myself. Aida?
Story 8.
I for telling my sister she can't bring her kids to my wedding? So, I 32M am getting married in a few months to my fiancé 30F, and we're super excited. We decided to have a child-free wedding because we want the event to be an evening affair with a more adult atmosphere. We've planned everything to be elegant and sophisticated, and we both agreed that having kids running around wouldn't really fit the vibe we're going for. My sister 35F has 3 kids, ages 6, 4, and 2. When I told her about our child-free policy, she was upset. She said that it would be really hard for her to find someone to watch the kids for the whole day and night, and that it feels like I'm excluding her family. She even offered to bring a nanny along to help manage the kids at the wedding, but I still said no because we want to keep it strictly adults only. She's now really hurt and says she might not come to the wedding at all if her kids aren't allowed. My parents are also pressuring me to make an exception, saying it's unfair to put my sister in this position and that family should come first. They think I'm being too rigid and not understanding how difficult it is for my sister to find childcare. I feel bad because I love my niece and nephews, but my fiancé and I are firm on wanting an adult-only wedding. I for sticking to our child-free wedding policy and not making an exception for my sister's kids. Edit. I need to run out and take care of some errands for a couple of hours. I'll update and reply to more comments when I'm back. Thanks for all the feedback and support so far.
Story 9.
I for refusing to plan my nephew's homeschool program. My 33F entitled sister-in-law 25F came to me last night demanding that I plan and give her everything to homeschool her oldest 5M for grade 1 next fall. I am a teacher with a master's degree in education, but I don't do grade 1. I've never taught it and honestly don't have the expertise to do a good job of getting a child started with reading. I teach grade for 5ths and am a math specialist. I don't have the training to teach early reading and phonics. Because I'm not qualified for grade 1 and would not be able to teach it at school as I lack early childhood or early primary courses, I turned down the request. My mill and Sil think I'm being the because I refuse to put together a grade 1 program, print it and deliver it to my Sil once a week for her to follow. Doing so would be 6-8 hours of my time a week to prepare the materials and plan for the activities for one child on top of planning for the 30 children in my grade for 5th class. My husband tried to find a middle ground that I could help his sister find the resources and order them but wouldn't be responsible for day-to-day planning and organizing. That wasn't good enough for Sil, who wants everything in a binder for the week with lesson plans, directions, and all materials printed and prepared. Sil is saying it's my duty as a family member to help educate her son, and by refusing, I'm denying him an education. The child currently has a spot at the public school I teach in, but she disagrees with a lot of school policies, and the child has special needs that need specific instructional methods I'm not trained in. I for refusing to help homeschool my nephew when I don't have the training to do a good job.
Story 10.
I for refusing to lend my sister a piece of our late father's handwriting for the purpose of a tattoo. Apologies if this seems petty to anyone else. My father passed away in January. IF 27 half to sisters, D 33, F and J 25, F. D and I have never gotten along well, and before our dad passed, we hadn't spoken in a couple years. We just don't have the same views at all. It is what it is. But we put everything aside, and luckily she was able to come say goodbye to our dad, as she does live about 9 hours away. Now to the main issue. I have a piece of paper with my dad's handwriting, containing the words love, Mitted's name Jay, and I have both gotten tattoos with this handwriting. Each of us had sent our tattoo artists a picture of the handwriting, and they turned out great. Now, Dee has asked if I could lend her this paper for her tattoo the next time she is down for a visit. A picture or even a scan will not work because she wants the artist to trace the actual paper. I haven't outright said no, but I want to say no. I don't want to start a fight with her, but I don't think I would have brought it in myself to get it done. But this is the same sister who felt entitled to a pair of mounted stag horns I had received from our grandparents a few years back because someone else had recalled her being so happy one time as a child after our dad had returned from hunting. And since I personally didn't share that with our dad, they should go to her. I didn't give them to her. For a little added context, our dad suffered a massive stroke and brain bleed 19 years ago, which resulted in major brain damage, and he lived in a full-time care home since. So, it's not like there is a house we had to go through with all of his things. And this is the only piece of his handwriting any of us have. And the paper itself is older than I am, as it was written on the back of a maternity report from the doctor my mother received when she was pregnant with me, and it's not in great shape as it is. I don't want to lend it to her, even for the day. And tracing a scan or a picture is going to make no difference in her damn tattoo. Story 11. Wibta, if I left my husband over how he treats my kids. I have been with my husband for 9 years now. I have 2 sons from a previous relationship, 14 and 11. For the first 8 years, my husband was the rock of this household. He never missed an event, was always planning and executing fun things for the kids, was always surprising the kids, and overall just made sure that our lives were full of fun and happiness. He never missed a parent-teacher conference or a doctor's appointment. And even when we didn't have anything planned, he was present and always included the kids in everything and engaged with them. He called them his kids. Their own father is MIA. So when we got pregnant, I had zero reason to believe anything would change. Our home life was essentially perfect. Well, our daughter is now 7 months old, and he's changed drastically. He comes home and is a pit of smiles and laughter for just his child. He has signed the boys up for various events or sports that he thinks they will enjoy during this time, but then fails to bring them, such as my youngest boy. He signed him up for Boy Scouts, paid a significant amount of money for him to go on his own accord, and then only brought him to 2 out of 8 meets before my son lost interest in going at all. He loved it during the meets he did go to, but he was tired of getting his hopes up. He always claimed he didn't have time, but he has time to go to the gym every day. He has time to work on his motorcycle, and he started sleeping in every day until at least 11 am. Boy Scouts was at 9. And more recently, my oldest son doesn't even engage with him anymore. This was following a small but devastating to a child thing. I bought him a dirt bike, and after a good week of riding, the tire spokes had popped the tube. He needs a new tire now. It's been sitting in our garage untouched for 2 months, and my son is itching to ride. My husband keeps saying he is going to go get the tire and will tell my son he's going to, but then comes home without it. So, my son had a bit of an attitude and asked him why he kept telling him he was going to get the tire if he wasn't going to. And my husband snapped at him, said, "You really think you deserve a tire with that attitude? Maybe you should be grounded instead." A lot of his responses to the kids asking for something or to do something now is met with a no, you don't need to, or no, you don't need that, and he gets pissed when the kids question it because they don't respect him. And honestly, I went from loving my husband so much that it made me sick, to now I'm physically repulsed by him. He's great with our child, But he's absolutely terrible with my boys now. And I have talked to him about it several times and he apologized to me, says that I'm right, that he will try harder, that he will apologize to my boys, but nothing has changed, and this has been the cause of at least 6 fights since I had the baby. We never fought before. But whenever I tell him I can't do this and say I'm leaving, he all of a sudden is scream crying, saying, "Where the fuck are you taking my child?" I want to leave, but I'm being made to feel guilty at every single turn because obviously he's great with his baby and our baby is still so young and new, so maybe he will go back to how he was. But a part of me doubts that. Wibta if I left? And for the record, I work full-time from home and have the baby with me 24/7. The only reason I had not brought my sons to these events on my own was because he promised that he would because I was working. But then he just failed to do so. I did call out twice to bring my boys to the events he promised them, but then he got pissed and picked a fight with me because we need the money and not everything will leave the kids fucking scarred, claiming they would be okay if they missed it.
Story 12.
I've been dating my fiancé for years and have been engaged for 7 months. We are trying to plan out a wedding for roughly fall next year. Her childhood was terrible and abusive, to put it mildly. Her parents were raging narcissists and she was the scapegoat for her two brothers. She was abused and thrown out the moment she turned 18. She was, however, a great student and hard worker, so with some scholarships and a part-time job, she has a great career and is pretty independent. The problem is that she still had contact with her family. None of them have changed. Well, actually, something has changed. They have become more financially dependent on her. They enjoy slowly creeping back into her life and emotionally blackmailing her for support or whatever she can do. They're not pleasant about it either. They're rude, smug, and generally enjoy being a nuisance. And my fiancé can't say no matter the horrible things they say or how they outright try and intimidate her openly. I've always known her family history and have always supported her through the issues with them. But in the last year or so they've become far more brazen and asinine. They come over to our house more often. They make messes all around the place. Her mother acts like she's the fucking stepmother from Cinderella. Her dad drinks all my fucking beer and empties out half the fridge. Her brothers stop by occasionally to act as mouthpieces for their parents. They practically trash the place and leave us to clean the mess. And where is my fiancé in all this? Quietly standing in the corner, practically shaking. I'm no fool here. There is legitimate trauma. There's her need to feel loved by them and her hoping they will appreciate her. Before one of you noble commenters states the obvious, she's been in therapy for this for years. I've tried to establish boundaries. For nearly 2 years I've been trying to push these asclones away. But this is her house she purchased, and no matter of contributions, financial or otherwise, will she let me have a say on who comes into her house. She's been beaten down mentally and emotionally by them for so long. She has told me recently that she wants to earn their approval, how they were right about her, how she needs to be better for them. I've had too many emotional conversations with tears and begging to count, hoping she will take the steps to get better. But she's an adult. I can't force her to do anything. I love her, but I can't help but feel so resentful of what she's doing. It's agonizing watching someone you love, someone who you know deserves so much better, openly destroy themselves for people like her family. It's been painful watching her cry herself to sleep one too many night because of them. I've tried too many times to help her get out of their clutches. But I have to think of the future. What happens when we have kids? What happens when she is postpartum and invites them over? What happens if there is a medical emergency for either of us? What if our finances get tight and they still demand money? This is the in-law family from hell and I won't be able to avoid them. Tomorrow I'm going to tell her how I want to delay the wedding until firm boundaries are established. If she resents, I walk. I can't do it anymore. I refuse to watch a slow death like this any further. Update. Talked to her and it went about as well as one could possibly expect. Currently getting myself set up in a hotel for a few days and working on possible long-term plans for moving out. Still a lot going on right now, but maybe sometime next week I'll be able to put everything together into one update. The night after I made the first post, I had decided that I was going to have a heart-to-heart with my fiancée about her family. However, she came back from work the next day early and I already was off that day, so I initiated the talk a little sooner than I planned. Essentially, I told her how this arrangement was not sustainable. I did not feel comfortable marrying her due to how much involvement in her life her family has. And I certainly did not feel comfortable bringing a child into this world with them. I didn't want to tell her cold turkey. no contact with them, but strict limitations to start with on then coming over, and what they can do around the house. I also requested couples therapy before marriage. She wasn't happy. She was just staring angrily at me while I spoke, then started yelling at me when I finished. She told me I don't understand their dynamic and it worked for her. I told her that they're abusive users who will bleed her dry and I have never seen them show any decency to her. She told me she just had to work harder for them to appreciate her. I basically yelled at her that a parent's child shouldn't have to beg and plead and work for them to be loved. I finally told her that she sets limits with them or I walk. She was livid, and since I was living in her house, I was kicked out. So the past few days I have been staying in a hotel and have had my stuff taken out and put into storage. And frankly, it's been great. I am going to stay with family for a few weeks around mid-July, and after that I am going to go house searching for myself. I have spent the last couple days relaxing, catching up on movies and video games I haven't had time for, and could go back from work to a quiet room without her family tearing the place apart. Yesterday, however, things came to a head. We have basically been no contact since she booted me out, but I know every Saturday her family loves to spend the afternoon over and she uses me as a shield from their abuse. However, in a very petty move, I simply kept my phone muted all day and played Disco Elysian. I knew she would call back for help with her family, and at this point pure resentment was kicking in for her and I wanted nothing to do with her issues. By the end of the night she had sent me over a dozen texts and finally 2 frantic voicemails begging me to come home. I decided to come over to check up on her. Long story short, she was sobbing in the living room, and when I came to talk to her she was practically crushing my back, hugging me and sobbing. I gave her time to cool off and asked what happened. Long story short, her parents and brother came by to gift money from her and say horrible shit to her. She wanted to have me come over to help, but I was ignoring her, and when she tried to have one of her friends help out and everyone basically said fuck that, it all started clicking in for her. She kicked her family out, but not before they said some utterly vile shit to her I won't repeat. She kept apologizing to me and told me over and over to come home. I told her plainly that I had started to build up heavy resentment towards her for some time, and while I loved her and understand it was trauma and not her being outright abusive, there was major issues that would need to be addressed if we were to move forward. 1. She sells the house and moves. We make roughly the same amount of money and we will buy a house together. I am a grown-ass man and I will not live in a house I have no equal agency over. 2. Her family will never step a foot in it. They will never come over. They will be treated by me in a very threatening manner if they try and come in. 3. She gets a new therapist, and we start premarital counseling. 4. She never makes me interact with her family. 5. We will go LC with her family right now. But make no mistake, we are working towards full NC on her end. I told her I love her. We have been together for a while now and have beautiful memories together, and I know she is suffering from abuse. But these are non-negotiable, and if she has a problem with any of them then we have to go out separate ways. She told me she's realized for a while now that her family is toxic and unhealthy. She wants to make changes. She has accepted, but some of these will take a while to see through. For now I am going to stay in the hotel until I head back to stay with my family. She is welcome to come over, but I have made it clear her house is not somewhere I want to go. Her and I are both off tomorrow, so we will spend the day here and maybe go out. This is obviously not over yet, but I might not post anything else until mid-August or so. Update to Ita for wanting to leave my finesse due to her abusive family. Despite all intentions of not updating until much later with the hopes of an improved relationship with my fiancé and her establishing boundaries with her toxic family, we are now broken up. Essentially, what happened was after last weekend, where I left her for the time to deal with them herself, she seemed to finally grasp the situation and was open to changes, including boundaries and a possible move. We spent Monday and Tuesday hanging out in my hotel that I was staying in until I went back to my family for a couple weeks. The other night she was being very vague with texting when she originally was supposed to come over. She came much later than expected and I knew something was up. She basically unloaded on me how I was abusive, controlling, overly demanding, and unsupportive. It took me 5 fucking seconds to figure out she was repeating verbatim some sort of rehearsed speech from her parents. And to be honest, I was so agitated at this point. Despite making a huge gamble on her, I decided to be a prick about it. I asked her if her family told her to say this. She said they suggested it to her, but she came up with it herself. Sorry. I asked her to explain in detail what I did. She said I was living like a parasite off her. I reminded her that I'm paying 50/50 it's for her fucking mortgage. 50/50 it's for utilities and groceries as well. I have my own car I pay for, a job that makes just about as much as hers. Unlike her fucking leech parents who demand payments on the weekly and raid the kitchen on the weekends, I told her to try again with something better. She looked flustered and said I was trying to isolate her. I kinda smirked like a jackass and told her that I have always supported her many friendships that she has destroyed on her own because no one wants to deal with her family or be used as a shield like me. I was practically demanding to know at this point why she is so hellbent on destroying her life for these people. She just kinda shouted that I don't understand her family and she's just trying to earn their love back and was basically ranting at that point. It's just so staggering to see up close. I have ventured into a few subreddits to get perspectives, and if you have any familiarity with them, you'll see how people who are victims of abuse by their own family can be so utterly broken by it that it'll wreck their brain to where they truly believe they are the problem and they deserve the abuse. Well, that's how she was. She was utterly broken and didn't want help. She didn't want to get better. She just wanted to get worse. It hit me like a truck, honestly. The realization. I really did feel like a fool for trying, even if it was what I was supposed to do in the first place. She was practically berserk at this point, and I was just mentally exhausted and needed her to leave before someone called the police. She finally left, but I had a few concerned neighbors check on me. Some of her friends are aware as they have messaged me checking on the situation. I told them the truth and that I just needed to be alone to think what to do next right now. They have revealed that she has given them similar rants after they expressed concern for her. One had even heard that she may be possibly at risk of losing her job. She is definitely having some sort of mental break. From my understanding, she is now completely isolated. She is actually sprinting into a horrible lonely life right now. There's nothing I can do for her at this point, and as selfish as it sounds, I'm just glad it's going to be behind me.
Story 13.
Aida for refusing to let my mill come over and sending her a receipt for our daughter's fridge. My husband and I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I am 6 months pregnant with a boy. We appreciate that our parenting style is very different from that of our parents. We decided to promote certain autonomous behaviors from a young age. Due to my own experience with an eating disorder caused by my upbringing, we prioritize autonomy in food for our daughter and plan to do the same for our son. To foster this, we set up a tiny semi-functional kitchen for our kids. It includes a small functional fridge, and my husband even rigged the sink with a weak pump. Our daughter keeps snacks in the fridge and her tiny pantry. The snacks range from bananas to individual chocolates. She has the freedom to take a portion of whatever she wants. When she wants to cook, make a fruit salad, muesli, etc., she can do so. Of course, she doesn't have access to dangerous items, but she helps us cook when she wants to. This method has resulted in our daughter not going crazy at the prospect of candy or chips because she can decide when to have them. She also knows that once she eats her snacks for the week, that's it. So she has learned to pace herself. Now, to the actual story. My mill is in town for a while, and we let her stay with us. I actually like her, but it has been a struggle at times because she has very set ways. She is not a fan of the tiny kitchen. She thinks we're going to make our daughter obese by allowing her to have snacks when she wants. On the first night, she took away the muesli bar my daughter was eating because dinner was at PM. It was around PM. When we asked her to please give it back and not to interfere, she relented, and that was that. Or so I thought. Last night, our babysitter got sick, and we asked Mill to watch our daughter. She agreed since it was just from PM to PM, and our daughter goes to bed at 7:30 PM. We went out for dinner, and when we returned, we found our daughter awake and crying. I went to soothe her, and my husband went to talk to his mother. It turns out Mill had made baked fish with boiled potatoes for dinner. My daughter told her she doesn't like fish because the smell makes her queasy. Mill insisted she had to eat everything on her plate or she wouldn't be allowed to get up. Our daughter ate the potatoes and tried to eat the fish but gagged. Mill got furious, took the plate away, and sent her to bed early. Our daughter got hungry and went to her kitchen to make some banana oats. Mill heard her, took the food away, threw it out, and brought out the rest of the fish, insisting she finish her dinner if she was hungry. Our daughter started crying and while trying to eat, threw up at the table. Mill changed her and cleaned up, and that's when we came home. I was livid. I immediately told Mill that her behavior was unacceptable and that she overstepped our boundaries. I made it clear that she would not be welcome to stay with us again if she couldn't respect our parenting choices. To make matters worse, I discovered the next morning that Mill had unplugged our daughter's fridge and put it outside. It rained heavily overnight, and the fridge was completely ruined. When I confronted Mill, she brushed it off, saying it was for our daughter's own good and that she didn't need a fridge. The fridge is not in her room. I translated from German and put it through chat, so it would be mistake-free. I decided to send her the receipt for the fridge, to underline how serious we are about this. Mill thinks I'm overreacting and that I'm being disrespectful to her as the grandmother. My husband is on my side, but he feels caught in the middle. So, Aida for refusing to let my Mill come over again and sending her a receipt for our daughter's fridge?
Story 14.
My husband and I had our son knowing that we wouldn't receive much or any family support. My Phil is ill, so that takes up my Mill's energy, and his siblings are child-free and not really interested in kids. My family lives far away and I never expected or received any help with babysitting, etc., except on the rare occasions that my parents come out to visit and give us a date night. Yes, it would be amazing if my husband's family was more involved, but I've never thought anyone owed us any babysitting, and we made the choice to have kids with our eyes wide open. My husband's sister has offered to take our son a couple of times to give us a break, but ultimately flacked each time. At this point, I'm not really sure that I'd be comfortable leaving my son with her anyway, so it's not something I've pursued. I'm currently pregnant with our second son, and we told the ILs we were having another boy during a family gathering. Everyone congratulated us but kept asking if we were disappointed that we weren't having a girl. I repeatedly said no, I loved my son and was happy to have another boy, but they wouldn't drop the subject, and his sister kept hounding me about when we would be trying for the third so we could give the family a girl. I told her there wouldn't be a third since we were planning to stop at 2 kids, but she kept pursuing the topic. 3 is better than 2, and you don't know what you'd be missing out on not having a daughter. I found this annoying because 1, my Sil has no kids and is child-free by choice, and 2, nobody in the family pays much attention to the child we already have, so I'm not sure why they are so concerned about it either way. Sil kept hounding me, and I told her that it would be difficult for us to afford a third kid with daycare costs, limited family support, a small home, 2 working parents, etc. I didn't emphasize the family piece, but it was one of several reasons that I rattled off to explain our decision. She eventually dropped it, but texted me later that night to say that she felt targeted since I knew that she wanted to babysit all those times, but something always came up. I said that was fine. My decision about the size of our family had nothing to do with her, and I never expected her to babysit, so I wasn't upset about it. Apparently that response pissed her off even more, because now she's telling my Mill and husband that I don't think she's a good aunt, and that's not a good reason to deprive the family of a girl. My husband says not to worry about it, and that's just how she is. But I probably shouldn't have mentioned family support if I didn't want to fight about it.
Story 15.
Aida for wanting my husband to hold my hand during birth. I originally posted this in Aida and it was removed. I can't see any of the comments now. I 35F am 7 months pregnant. I am married to a family medicine doctor 35M and we've been together 10 years. Throw away Reddit because my Sil follows me on Reddit and reports everything to my husband. I'm reaching out to all of you to ask your advice on a fight my husband and I are having on our birth plan. My husband really wants to deliver the baby, which I can kind of understand. It's not uncommon for doctors to deliver their own kid. There is still an obgyn there monitoring everything, and the doctor father steps in at the last minute as mom is crowning to just catch the baby. My husband has, I guess, always dreamed of being the one to pull the baby out, while I pictured it very differently. I thought he would be up by my head, holding my hand and helping me through it. He says he will do that, but the easiest part is the very end where I won't need him anyway. He said if I really want someone there, his mom can step in. I've been on my own since I was a kid living in my car, so I don't have anyone I'd want in there with me except him. I don't really even want his mom in there. She's great, but he's my person. I know it would be cool for him to deliver our baby, but I really feel like I need him there. I personally didn't want our doctors to know he was a doctor, because as soon as any of my doctors, or even our vet, finds out he's a doctor, they talk exclusively to him. I don't even want him to go the prenatal appointments anymore because no one talks to me. They all talk to him. And I can't ask my questions to anyone but my husband at home. But he's already told everyone he'll be delivering his first baby. I guess I don't want this because I wanted him to be there as a husband and a father, and not a doctor. I see him as a doctor 95% of the time. And I wanted to experience this with my husband and not my husband, the doctor. I wanted him to be there for me, as this is my first birth and I'm terrified. He just keeps telling me I'll be fine. He pulled in friends or family who also don't understand my POV. They said this is his first child too, and to just let him have this since I had the honor of being pregnant. I just really wanted him to hold my hand all the way through it, and be able to share this experience as parents and people instead of a medical professional. I was hoping we could see the baby at the same time and just be equals in this. Am I being selfish for wanting this to be my way?
Story 16.
Aida for backing out of planning my conservative sister's wedding last minute because she didn't invite my partner? My 28M sister 30F is getting married in a couple of months. My partner 30M and I have been together for years, and we're very serious. He's been nothing but kind to my family, even though they're conservative, and sometimes vocal about their thoughts on our relationship. A few weeks ago, my sister sent out her wedding invitations. I was shocked to see that my partner wasn't invited. When I asked her why, she said she didn't think it was necessary to invite him because we're not married yet and she wanted to keep the guest list small. However, I've noticed that she invited several plus ones of our other relatives and friends who aren't married either. For some context, my family is Catholic and very religious. When I came out as gay in my early teens, it split the family. It has taken a long time for everyone to move past their differences, but in the last 5 or so years things have started to feel somewhat normal again. Despite this, my sister still makes subtle remarks about disagreeing with my sexuality sometimes, which makes me think there might be another reason behind her decision. To further complicate things, I'm a wedding planner and have been helping my sister with planning free of charge. We were really close as kids, and that kind of fell apart when I came out. So I was excited about the opportunity to do something for her and to be involved in her special day. I tried to talk to her and explain how hurtful not inviting my partner was, and how it felt like she was intentionally excluding him. She brushed me off and said it was her wedding and she could invite whoever she wanted. I told her that if she couldn't respect my relationship, I wouldn't be able to support her on her big day. This includes helping her with wedding preparations, which I've been heavily involved in up to this point. Additionally, several of the vendors she's working with are close friends of mine, and they have expressed their discomfort with the situation. She may lose some of them as a result, and will likely have to hire another wedding planner, which will significantly increase her costs. Now my family is furious with me. My parents are saying that I'm overreacting and that I should just suck it up for the sake of family harmony. They think I'm being petty and selfish for backing out of helping my sister just because my partner wasn't invited. My sister, of course, is playing the victim and saying that I'm ruining her wedding. I feel strongly about standing up for my partner and our relationship, but the backlash from my family is making me second-guess myself. Aida for refusing to help my sister with her wedding because she didn't invite my partner. Edit for clarity. My sister is marrying a man she met through, and is heavily involved with, the church that they attend. It is the same church that I attended as a child and teen, but eventually left due to their bigotry. He has always been tolerant of my partner and I, but any conversation I've tried to have with him has been one-sided and unengaging. It's always been a bit awkward, but he's never been outright rude to us. Apparently his family is even more conservative than my own, and I'm almost certain that is why my partner isn't invited. My sister denies my sexuality having any forbearance on her decision, but I'm almost positive that she's excluding him in order to keep the peace on her wedding day. I also wanted to say that I didn't immediately tell all of the vendors about the situation. They all work together frequently, and found out on their own when I had to explain to the catering company why I was no longer helping with the wedding. I have no say in whether or not any of them continue with the wedding, but I expect them to drop out, especially if another planner is not hired, as my sister is terrible with planning and communication.
Story 17.
Ita, for breaking up with my fiancé after he made my family feel unwelcome in our home. My fiancé 30M recently bought a house and I 28F moved in with him. The house is in his name only, but our arrangement was that he pay the mortgage and I pay all utilities or groceries. He has been trying to get me to see the home as ours, but I still consider it his since my name is nowhere on the mortgage or deed or even rental agreement. And he has been taking care of all home ownership expenses. I originally wanted for us to buy a home together after getting married, but our leases were almost up and he had the money for a house and didn't want to keep renting any longer than necessary. So now seemed like the best time. I was okay with this since I wasn't in a financial position yet to help put down money on a new home either way and think our current arrangement is more than fair. Anyways, my family was super excited when they heard that he bought a place and that we would be moving to a house instead of continuing to live in our small apartments. They love him like a son and were so happy about him finally becoming a homeowner. My mom and her sister, my aunt, asked if they could come visit us for the 4th of July holiday since they were off and wanted to see the new place. They live about 3 hours away and wanted to take the train. I initially told them no since it was so close to the time we were finishing the move, but when my fiancé heard about it, he assured me it would be okay and he was happy to have them visit. He loves my aunt's cooking and she loves to cook for people, so he thought it would be great to have her come cook and we would have our place ready for them by then. We bought all the furniture we needed, beds for the guest rooms, etc. His sister and her kids were also going to be in town and would be visiting us, so it was going to be nice having everyone meet and spend the day together. I was really looking forward to it and even bought a new grill. He bought fireworks to shoot off with the kids. It was supposed to be a fun weekend and our first time hosting as a couple. At first, everything was going well and everyone was getting along. My mom and aunt were cooking while his sister was just hanging out talking and the kids were watching TV. My mom started washing a dish and I mentioned to her to not use the sponge to clean the counters, because my fiancé doesn't like that. Something about bacteria spreading from the sponge to the counter. We clean our counters with sponges back home. I grew up doing it this way, so I figured I'd tell her beforehand so he wouldn't get upset. He decided to make this a topic of conversation or debate and asked his sister for her thoughts on this. It seemed like he wanted to prove he was right about the bacteria thing, since it was something we had argued about way back when I washed dishes at his apartment for the first time. I had long ago conceded he was right and stopped using a sponge on counters. His sister disagreed with his logic though, and pointed out that the sponge in the sink is collecting bacteria either way, and he's going to wash another dish with it and spread the bacteria to the dishes that he eats with. So his logic about it spreading to the counter didn't make too much sense unless he's replacing the sponge after every use. He proceeded to pull up CDC articles and try to prove his point, but her logic also made sense. She didn't think it was a hill to die on and teased him about being a psycho over the bacteria and sponge thing. He finally dropped it and we started talking about other things. I should mention that his new home has quartz counters and he made it be known when we moved in that I definitely couldn't use a sponge since he says it'll damage the stone. So the whole bacteria debate was pointless anyways. We were talking about the house and I brought up that he has been very careful with things in the new house and joked that he has even been waking up at 4 a.m. to trim hedges in the front lawn like a psycho. He laughed, but I later learned he took offense to my comment. My mom made a joke at some point about him being quite particular about his new house and laughed along with my aunt. Prior to this, he had already joked around with her through the security cameras when she went outside by scaring her and telling her to wipe her feet before coming in. He thought it was funny to joke around with her like that. I knew there was an element of truth to his joking, but my mom took it in good fun though, since she also jokes around with him, so that was fine, I guess. The kids were sitting alone on the couch and I was trying to be a good host, so I asked if they wanted anything to eat or drink and his nephew 7M asked for a cookie, which I gave him along with a napkin, and he went back to the couch to continue watching TV with his brother. I didn't see it, but apparently he dropped cookie crumbs on the couch while he was eating. Obviously not on purpose. They're good kids. My fiancé saw the crumbs and immediately got upset and started scolding him, and I stepped in and said it was my fault, and that I gave him the cookie. I honestly didn't see a problem with this at the time since we sometimes eat dinner on the couch and the material is very easy to clean, but I didn't say anything about that. My fiancé turned to me and started scolding me about eating on the couch in front of everyone. I apologized multiple times and he kept going on about how the couch is brand new and there shouldn't be any eating on it and giving me stern looks like a parent gives a child. After I apologized for the third time, his sister stepped in and was like, "Okay bro, she apologized. I think she gets it." I was super embarrassed to have him scold me like that in front of everyone, but I shrugged it off since I didn't want to kill the mood and make it more awkward for our guests. We ended the night by shooting off fireworks with his nephews, and then they went home with his sister and we went to sleep. At this point, my family got the sense that he was very serious about the upkeep of the house and started feeling uncomfortable and like they were intruding in his very clean space. The next day, they spent most of the day outside of the house shopping and going for walks so they wouldn't be in the way. My fiancé spent the day locked in his office working and playing video games and didn't really come out. It wasn't like my family to spend so much time away as they usually like talking and spending time together with us. So at night I decided to go on one of their walks with them, and my mom mentioned how much she loved the area where we live due to all the parks and couldn't wait to come back. But for me not to worry because she will rent a hotel room so she doesn't bother us too much. I guess it broke my heart a little bit hearing that because I realized we'd made her and my aunt feel unwelcomed in our new home. She'd never come out right and say that, but my mom and aunt had visited me in my tiny apartment before, slept on air mattresses, and not once complained or say they'd prefer to stay in a hotel. When we got back, it was late and my fiancé was still in his office playing video games. I could tell he was also being distant and I didn't want to bother him, so I went to bed. He joined me a few minutes later and wanted to talk. He said he didn't like the comment I made earlier calling him a psycho in my story, and that he was also unhappy with my family joking and laughing about him. He said he felt disrespected in his own house. I felt like I had so many things to say to him, but my family was in the next room and my fiancé has a tendency to yell whenever we have disagreements, so I just apologized to him. I told him I was telling a funny story and completely joking and didn't mean it literally, but I understood where he was coming from and it wouldn't happen again. I also apologized on my family's behalf and told him they didn't mean any harm, and from my perspective it looked like he was joking right back with them, but I was sorry either way. I also pointed out his sister had also called him a psycho and asked if he was upset at her too. He said he had already talked to his sister about that and she apologized and they were good. My family was due to stay with us for a couple more days, so after I apologized for everything, I told him what my mom said about staying in the hotel and how I can tell they're feeling unwelcomed and how it's breaking my heart that they feel that way in our home. I told him that since he was also upset at them, not to worry, that I would make sure we do things outside the house for the next couple of days so they stay out of his way him until they leave. Even though I was apologizing to him, my heart hurt for my family, and I decided in that moment that I couldn't stay with someone that created such an unwelcoming environment for our guests when they visit. Especially not my family, were really close, and aside from him, they're all I have. They traveled 3 hours by train each way, super excited to visit. My aunt even visited a special supermarket to get the right sausages to make his favorite dish, carrying it in a cooler by train, along with other goodies that he would like. The love and thoughtfulness she put into it broke me a little bit. She's far from a rich person, but extremely giving with all she has, and I love her so much for that. She's always getting his favorite foods and buying him little gifts whenever we visit her. I felt so bad for putting her in that situation. I don't think he ever even offered them a water the whole time they were with us. It truly felt like he cared more about his precious new house than the people in it. Anyways, I told him after I dropped them off at the train station on their last day that I would be leaving too, and that it was over between us. He wouldn't need to worry about us messing up his place or disrespecting him in his own house anymore. Over the next couple of days, my family sensed something was off, but all I told them is that he's mad at me over a disagreement. I didn't tell them that he was also upset at them, but they felt it. He locked himself up in his room for the rest of their stay, and whenever he would come out, he completely ignored us, wouldn't even look their way or mutter more than a hi. I think he only came downstairs once while we were watching TV, to snatch the remote and turn the bass off because it was rumbling his room upstairs. Didn't say a word to any of us as he did this. My aunt was hurt, since she really loves him like a son and felt like she did something to upset him. She's a very sentimental person, and my mom let it slip she was crying the night before, thinking he hates her. She wasn't wrong. He would either look down or look at us like he hated us every time we passed him in the hall or something, but I know that would be broken her heart, so I told her he was mad at me for something and not to worry, that he still loved her very much but was just mad at me. He didn't bother to come out of his room and say goodbye as they were leaving. Even through all that, my aunt's last words to me at the train station were for me to make up with him because she loves both of us so much. I've been feeling so conflicted about all of this, so please help me out here, Reddit. On one hand, I feel bad for calling him a psycho, even if it was in a joking manner. But on the other hand, I've been feeling so bad for my family and how they must have felt staying in a house with that kind of energy when I know they had good intentions. So, Reddit,
Story 18.
Aida for icing out my sill after she made fun of my wedding? My husband 26M and I 24F recently had our dream wedding themed around Dungeons and Dragons. Both of us are huge fans, and we thought it would be a fun and unique way to celebrate our special day, considering we met via playing the game. We both wore costumes, with my husband dressed as his Eldritch Knight PC and I dressed as a Seelie Archfey. We even encouraged our guests to dress up, and many of them did, which made the day even more magical. Most of our friends and family were supportive and seemed to have a great time. However, my sister-in-law, my husband's brother's wife 29F, was not so pleased. She attended the wedding but refused to wear a costume, which was fine since it was optional. The problem started during the reception when she began making snide remarks about our theme. She loudly joked about how childish and ridiculous it was for adults to dress up like characters from a game, and even called it a waste of a wedding. I tried to brush it off at first, not wanting to cause a scene, but her comments continued throughout the night. She even said something directly to me about how I looked like I was going to a Halloween party rather than my own wedding. By the end of the evening, I was really hurt and upset. My husband noticed and confronted her privately, but she brushed it off as just joking. She made fun of the food we chose to serve, the song we picked for our first dance, Merry-Go-Round of Life from Howl's Moving Castle, and even my wedding dress because it wasn't a real wedding dress. She hurt my feelings severely, and when my husband stood up to her, she told him our wedding was a nerdy loser wedding. After the wedding was over, my husband stopped talking to her entirely and only has spoken to his brother ever since. Yesterday, a month after our wedding, we had a dinner party with our immediate families, and I asked my husband if we could refrain from inviting her. He agreed and said she needed to be on a timeout for disrespecting both of us. She found out she missed the dinner and is super angry with me, texting me that I'm an ass and a bitch for not inviting her but still inviting her husband. I told her that my bill wasn't disrespectful and she shouldn't have been surprised we didn't want her around. After she badmouthed our wedding, she told me I was a major asshole and that she was joking and talking about her preferences. I feel really bad for not inviting her, but I don't want to see her after she made our wedding about herself and her preferences. My husband agrees with me, but my bill has since stopped talking to either of us because we disrespected his wife and that she was just joking and we can't take a joke. Aida,